So welcome everybody. We're really excited to have you here. We're always thankful to have Strive back. We have Dr. Andrea Daniels with us this morning to talk about progesterone. So there's a chat in the bottom toolbar. Feel free if you want to introduce yourself, ask questions. You can add things in the chat. There's also a Q&A button at the bottom where if you have questions as we go, feel free to add questions to the Q&A or to the chat. And then we'll hold about 15 minutes at the end to kind of go through any of those. So with that, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm one of the pharmacists for Strive and also the VP of Clinical Services. Again, it's an honor to be here to share with you today and on progesterone, which is an incredible product. I'll start with a disclaimer. Disclaimer states that the information in these slides is for educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical judgment, diagnosis, or treatment. So many of you on this are providers. So obviously I thank you for listening to me and also being able to utilize your medical judgment for your patients. Compounded medications are especially prepared for individual patients' needs and as such have not been reviewed or approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. So these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. As far as our agenda goes, we are going to talk about what progesterone is, what it does, how it works, the benefits of the capsule, uses for her, uses for him, and then alternative delivery systems. First thing I wanted to do was thank you for being here. Part of that reason is that over the last 2 decades, there has been a lot of debate with the utilization of hormones in women and in men as well. So for years, the legacy of the Women's Health Initiative studies shaped the public and professional perception, suggesting that hormone therapy carried risk that outweighed the benefits. That single study dramatically changed prescribing practices, leaving many women hesitant and many clinicians cautious about hormone replacement therapy itself. But as science evolves, so there was a paradigm shift, and it was one of the most exciting days. And I know so many of our worlds this last year is when the FDA panel had a review, and they acknowledged the understanding of hormone therapy needed to be revisited. So now we recognize that the WHI findings cannot be universally applied to all women of all ages or all forms of hormone replacement therapy, excuse me. So the population studied, the formulations used, and the timing of initiation were very specific and very different from how we prescribe hormones today. So this modern evidence has shown that the timing of therapy matters, the type and route of the therapy matters, and then most importantly, it's showing that these provide such a great quality of life. And in the end, that quality of life matters. So now we'll move past the narrative that was previously held as far as the negative beliefs against providing hormone therapy, hormone replacement therapy. And now we get to move in, to this new realm where it is supported. So thank you for being here. And that is one of the big reasons I have had so many new providers kind of interested in hormone replacement therapy. I was at a conference and it was on women's hormone replacement therapy, and 52% of the attendees were new to hormone replacement therapy, which was just such an exciting thing to see, just that shift in mindset. So now let's take a second to dive into progesterone. So what is progesterone? Progesterone is a naturally occurring or endogenous steroid hormone. So while people primarily associate progesterone with women's reproductive health, it's actually produced in both men and women. So it's synthesized in the adrenal cortex as well as in the ovaries in women and the testes in men. Progesterone is derived from cholesterol, which is a precursor molecule for many of our steroid hormones. So because of that shared pathway, changes in cholesterol metabolism, stress hormone demand, or aging can all influence progesterone levels in the body. So although progesterone plays a key role in reproductive physiology, such as preparing the uterine lining for implantation and regulating the menstrual cycle, its impact goes way far beyond reproduction. So, progesterone has meaningful effects in the nervous system, in the immune system, and even in bone health. So, when we talk about progesterone clinically, we're not just talking about fertility or cycles. We're now talking about whole body hormone with roles in emotional regulation, tissue repair, and long-term health balance. So, the story behind progesterone. So, we talk oftentimes, it is stated that we utilize oral micronized natural or bioidentical progesterone. What does that actually mean? So, the story of modern progesterone actually starts in nature. So, they found that wild yams contain a steroidal compound called diosgenin. No, diosgenin. That's it. And in the 1940s, a chemist named Russell Marker discovered how to convert this compound into progesterone through a process called semisynthesis. So, this discovery revolutionized hormone therapy, allowing us to produce hormones, progesterone, identical to the structure that the human body naturally makes. And that's something that's very important. So, it's important to know that the progesterone cannot convert that chemical on its own, and that's why the transformation requires these scientific laboratory conditions. But the result is a bioidentical progesterone, which means the molecule is chemically identical to the endogenous human progesterone. So the body recognizes this progesterone and responds to it the same way it would its own hormone. I will compare progesterone to progestin next, but that is the incredible thing about this, about bioidentical progesterone. Now we call it natural. Is it natural? The reason why it's called natural is because it is the exact same as what our bodies make. So while bioidentical progesterone is structurally the same as what our body makes, its delivery method is critical. So when taken orally, in its natural crystalline form, it's poorly absorbed, excuse me. So that is why we micronize it. So it's going to be made into a very, very thin, fine particles. And that micronization increases the surface area, allowing the hormone to be absorbed more efficiently through the digestive tract. So that's why we call it oral micronized. That's why we call it natural or bioidentical. Next, we're going to move on to speaking about the difference between progesterone and progestin. There is a very huge difference. So when we talk about progesterone, it's important to distinguish between those two. Progestins are a synthetic product. So because although these terms are often used interchangeably, they're not the same molecule and they don't behave the same way. So bioidentical progesterone, just as what we were speaking about earlier, has the exact same molecular structure as progesterone. Therefore, it acts just like the progesterone our body endogenously makes. That means that it's going to utilize the same pathways. It'll utilize the same receptors. Now, progestins are synthetic analogs. They're designed to bind to progesterone receptors, but their chemical structures are not identical to our natural progesterone. So because of this, they bind to progesterone receptors differently. They're going to bind to other hormone receptors unintentionally. And they're also going to produce different physiological responses than what the bioidentical hormones would. So because of that, progestins can actually influence mood, fluid retention, or appetite differently than our bioidentical hormones would. It also affects lipid metabolism differently. And it has different neuroactive calming effects. It doesn't have those same calming effects because it does not convert to the allopregnanolone, which we'll speak about in just one moment. So when providers say, I tried progesterone before, the patient didn't tolerate it, we have to ask, was it progesterone, a bioidentical version, or progestin? And I do have a personal story about this. I had a friend who was really struggling with heavy bleeding, sleeplessness, just a lot of the common complaints you hear in individuals who are low in progesterone. So she went to her provider, requested progesterone, and called me and said, this isn't working. Something's wrong. I feel worse than I felt before. and I requested a picture of what was given to her. And it was progestin. It was a, the synthetic version, progestin. And I had to say that's why you weren't given the product that I was hoping, would be recommended to you. So with that being said, we're going to find her a new provider. Maybe even one of you that's here today that is now going to understand the difference between progesterone and progestin. The GABA story. So this is a very interesting component of the progesterone capsule. So progesterone, when taken orally in capsule form, is metabolized by the liver. So it goes through first pass metabolism in the liver, and at which time it is converted into several neuroactive metabolites. One of the most notable of these is the allopregnanolone. So allopregnanolone is then able to cross the blood-brain barrier and interact directly with the GABA-A receptors. So the GABA-A is a primary inhibitory receptor in the brain, meaning it's involved in the body's natural mechanisms of calming neural activity, reducing overstimulation, and helping with emotional reactivity. So when allopregnanolone binds to the GABA receptors, it enhances these effects, which can promote a sense of calm or ease. It can reduce perceived stress or anxiety. It can support mood steadiness and can help with sleep, restorative sleep. So that's why the oral route is unique. That's why we oftentimes recommend the oral route. So while progesterone can be given topically, while it can be utilized as a troche, taking it orally allows for that first pass metabolism to have, which is then going to provide these calming effects of the progesterone. It is also another reason why it's normally given at nighttime. So we're going to dive into progesterone for her. So for her, progesterone is a quiet strength, a guiding balance, a nurturing calm, and helps her to embrace each new chapter with confidence. Over time, a woman's progesterone levels vary. So, and this is in the reproductive years. So we have to recognize that even prior to these reproductive years, when young girls are going through puberty and whatnot, their progesterone levels are changing as well. But progesterone is an ovulation-dependent hormone. It's produced by the corpus luteum after an egg is released. So during the reproductive years, levels rise and fall rhythmically each month, peaking after ovulation in the luteal phase and then dropping before menstruation. So this monthly pattern helps to regulate the cycle, stabilize the mood, and support restful sleep. As women enter perimenopause, ovulation becomes less consistent. So when ovulation doesn't occur, progesterone production becomes minimal, even though estrogen may still surge. So this creates a relative estrogen dominance, leading to symptoms like mood swings, anxiety, poor sleep, bloating, irregular heavy periods. By menopause, ovulation has stopped completely and progesterone levels drop to nearly zero. So without that progesterone balancing effect, the nervous system and endometrium, can both become more reactive. So over time, we move from a steady monthly rhythm to erratic fluctuations and then a consistently low level. And that's why it explains why there are many emotional, physical, and cycle-regulated changes women experience during the transition of perimenopause into menopause. Next, let's meet Jill. So Jill is me. Jill is somebody my mom was at one period of time. Most of us either have somebody in our life that is going through perimenopause or menopause or are possibly going through it themselves. So let's talk about what many women actually feel when their progesterone starts to decline. This often begins years before the final menstrual period, so in perimenopause. And during this time, estrogen levels, as we stated, will still fluctuate, but progesterone is the one that's going to steadily decrease. So what does that look like in daily life? Many women describe it as, I feel like my emotions are just right under the surface. I can't handle stress the way I used to. My sleep is broken and I wake up at 2 a.m. for no reason. I used to feel like myself and now I just don't. So, clinically, you may notice sleep disturbances, anxiety or increased stress sensitivity, mood swings or irritability, new or worsening PMS-like symptoms, irregular cycles. And why do we have these symptoms? Because progesterone is one of the body's natural calming hormones. We spoke about its effect on GABA and how that will help with emotional steadiness, stress tolerance, and the body's ability to settle into restful sleep. So when progesterone drops, the nervous system can feel like it's lost some of its buffering capacity, let's say. It's lost some of its cushion. Um, that's why women might say, I used to roll with things. Now everything feels just a little bit heavier. I'm tired at night, but I can't fall asleep. Small stressors feel big. So, this is why understanding oral micronized progesterone clinically is so relevant because it's one of the ways we can re engage that GABA cycle to make women kind of feel like themselves again. We are going to now dive into a few of these different areas in where progesterone is either essential or also just very important to support women through perimenopause and menopause. We'll first look at the endometrial and uterine protection. When we provide estrogen therapy, which oftentimes is provided in a perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopausal phase, and a woman still has her uterus, it is important to support the uterine lining. So, estrogen's role is to build up the endometrium. That's a normal physiological function during the menstrual cycle. However, if we provide estrogen by itself without its balancing hormone, which is progesterone, the endometrium lining can continue to proliferate without a signal to stabilize or shed. So over time, this unopposed estrogen stimulation can lead to endometrial thickening, irregular bleeding, and then atypical changes in the tissue. So, that could lead, unfortunately, to cancer diagnoses or whatnot. So that's where progesterone plays a huge role. So it helps to stabilize the endometrial lining. It signals the lining to stop proliferating and supports orderly shedding, which occurs naturally in a healthy cycle. So when we prescribe oral micronized progesterone capsules alongside estrogen in women who still have a uterus, we're essentially recreating the natural hormonal rhythm that the body used to have. These used together are often known as combined hormonal therapy. And do know that women who have had a hysterectomy who are utilizing estrogen, it is not necessary to have that progesterone kind of balance, that progesterone equilibrium. But progesterone can still be given to help support a lot of the other functions of the woman. We'll go into sleep support. So we kind of hit on this when I explained Jill, but when we think about sleep disturbances in perimenopause and menopause, we often hear the same story. I'm exhausted, but I can't fall asleep. I wake up and my mind won't shut off. The hot flashes are waking me up and I can't get back to sleep. These are incredibly common complaints and one of the most early and frustrating symptoms women experience during menopausal transition. So let's connect this with the progesterone physiology and how it can help. We've spoken about GABA. You're going to hear about it more and more. But when that oral micronized progesterone is given, it will convert to allopregnanolone, which will hit those GABA receptors. It's going to help to quiet the mind, to help support smoother transitions into more restorative, slow wave sleep. And what's fascinating is how quickly it can occur. So another quick story. I had a friend mention to me that she just wasn't feeling like herself, wasn't finding joy, couldn't sleep, etc. Immediately started progesterone, and within days she noticed a huge difference in how she felt. So she, started feeling like herself again. She had that restorative sleep. Which then just made her feel so much better. So women will notice the response from the progesterone very quickly, which is a wonderful thing. Clinical studies and provider experience suggest that several observed benefits with improved sleep quality and continuity. So fewer nighttime wakenings, reduced insomnia symptoms, decreasing hot flashes, and then mood stabilization over time. We do see a typical dose for sleep support is normally between 100 to 300 milligrams of that oral micronized progesterone. Now, there are times that a patient may need more than that, and times when a patient may need less. One of the main side effects that you may hear a patient explain when using oral micronized progesterone is that they wake up a little groggy. Now, that some of that may even out over time, but if they remain with those symptoms, it might be necessary to decrease the dose, which is very easy to do when you have a product that's compounded. Next, we'll jump into mood and cognitive support. So this again is as a result of the progesterone being converted to the allopregnanolone. It's going to be a result of the positive influence on the GABA receptors. So very similar mechanism. But as women are going through perimenopause, menopause, they do state that they have more anxiety, they're more irritated, they have some depression, they may have some brain fog, some difficulty or frustrating being able to concentrate, forgetfulness, mental fatigue. So with those drops in progesterone, that those GABA receptors are not being utilized properly, and therefore these symptoms are being seen. Nighttime dosing is great. It's going to help with the mood and cognitive support and also help with the sleep. So these are three big reasons why it is given to women of perimenopause or menopausal state. Help with mood, cognitive support, help with sleep, and some of those active situations such as hot flashes and whatnot, and then also support the endometrial protection. Now we're going to dive into a few other subsets of women. So we have women that we're utilizing this for cycle regulation, women who are experiencing PMS, women looking for fertility support, and also women who are experiencing depression and anxiety. So for menstrual regulation, when we think about progesterone, it's easy to focus just on menopause, but it's a hormone importance begins much earlier. So it's essential throughout the woman's reproductive years. Progesterone is the great balancer in the menstrual cycle. So during the first half of the cycle, estrogen job is to build the uterine lining and then prepare for potential implantation. After ovulation, the corpus luteum produces progesterone, which stabilizes that lining and signals the body whether to sustain or to shed it. When progesterone levels are low, whether from anovulatory cycles, stress, perimenopausal changes even, that balance is disrupted. So clinically, you may see irregular or unpredictable cycles, heavier or prolonged bleeding, shortened luteal phase, and in some cases, difficulty maintaining early pregnancy. So by supplementing bioidentical oral micronized progesterone, it can help to restore that rhythm that estrogen and progesterone are meant to maintain together, just like in that chart that I showed earlier. So how is progesterone going to help in this? Help support the healthy luteal phase, ensuring the uterine lining is stabilized rather than continually being built up. It regulates the timing of bleeding, leading to lighter, more predictive cycles and periods. It can help to reduce PMS system. And through its GABAergic effects, just as we were speaking of earlier, it's going to help with sleep quality and also an emotional balance. So essentially, we're reintroducing the signal the body has been missing, helping the cycle feel more consistent, more manageable, and more in sync. So women often describe this just by stating, "My body feels in rhythm again." And that's really the goal, is to restore that hormonal balance so that the cycle is organized rather than being more chaotic. Next, we'll speak about PMS, so premenstrual syndrome. When women describe PMS, they're often not just talking about cramps or bloating. They're describing their whole body and an emotional shift that happens in the days before their period. I'm more irritable, I can't sleep, I feel swollen, anxious, and just not myself. These experiences often stem from the natural drop in progesterone that occurs at the end of a luteal phase. So in some women, from cycles where progesterone never reaches a sufficient levels to begin with, they may have those symptoms for an extended period. So progesterone is going to have a calming influence. Again, working on those GABA receptors. By calming the nervous system, progesterone can help ease the premenstrual anxiety that might be experiencing and tension that many feel as estrogen levels remain high or fluctuate unpredictably. So, in addition, progesterone can act as a natural counterbalance to estrogen. So, while estrogen can be stimulating and energizing earlier in the cycle, without enough progesterone in the second hand, that stimulation can lead to mood swings, irritability, and sleep disturbances. So, again, that perfect balance between estrogen and progesterone is necessary for stabilization overall. When we use oral micronized progesterone in women struggling with PMS, we're not just addressing a symptom, we're addressing the underlying neurohormonal balances that might be driving these symptoms. Next, let's speak on fertility support. This one hits close to home. Fertility support is necessary, and progesterone is a huge piece of that. When we talk about progesterone and fertility, it's important to recognize that the hormone is absolutely central to both conception and early pregnancy success. So we spoke how progesterone is produced in the corpus luteum after ovulation, and is necessary for the uterine lining buildup so that it can either prepare for conception and implantation or it will shed that lining. So its primary reproductive role is to transform the endometrium from the proliferative estrogen-driven state to a receptive secretory state. It creates a nutrient-rich environment where fertilized eggs can implant and thrive. And if conception occurs, it maintains uterine balance. So it keeps the lining stable until the placenta can take over progesterone production at around 8 to 10 weeks of gestation. So when progesterone is insufficient, whether due to luteal phase deficiencies, anovulatory cycles, or ovarian dysfunction, implantation might not occur efficiently, and early miscarriages can be a result. So that's where progesterone plays its most supportive role. So clinically, it's used in ovulatory disorders. It's used in recurrent pregnancy loss. It's used in IVF, IUI, and other assisted reproductive technologies. So with progesterone, the goal isn't necessarily to increase fertility directly, but it's to correct any hormonal imbalances that might interfere with normal conception and early gestation. One last area we're going to dive into, and that's depression and anxiety support. So we've already spoken about this with Jill, how we're going to help with some of the depressive feelings she may be experiencing, some of the anxiety she may be experiencing, and it's going to provide that same calming effect even in younger women. But what I really want to dive into real quick is postpartum support. I read a story about a woman who had just had a baby. She looked like she had it all together. She ended up in the ER with just severe depression, nearly having suicidal ideations. She was kind of dismissed until finally somebody came in and just asked her about her. And she was able to explain that she had recently had a baby. She felt like she was doing okay, but then the depression really set in hard. And that provider realized that what she needed was some progesterone support. So she was given, a bolus dose of progesterone, sent home with progesterone as well, in a capsulated form, and immediately felt better. Immediately felt like herself. Immediately felt like she could be the mother to her new baby, be the wife to her husband, and just continue in her life. And the incredible thing is, progesterone is what did that. So this brings this this story is leading into what happens during postpartum and why our patients may experience those depressive or anxiety-ridden moments. During pregnancy, progesterone levels are very, very high. So the placenta functions as a powerful endocrine organ, maintaining progesterone levels that are actually 10 to 20 times higher than in the luteal phase. So they rise steadily throughout gestation and remain elevated until delivery. So this constant high progesterone is going to help with the GABA effect we've talked about so many times. So a lot of times in late pregnancy, while physically we're uncomfortable, sometimes we feel our best. So we're emotionally stable, may even state that they're serene at that time. The problem is after delivery, progesterone levels fall sharply. So this is going to be one of the most dramatic hormonal declines in human physiology. And this occurs because, as I was stating earlier, the placenta, once the placenta is expelled after birth, all of that progesterone that had been within the woman's system has now declined severely. So oftentimes within 24 to 48 hours, that's when that decline is. And women oftentimes will start noticing the baby blues and whatnot. It does take a long time for that to regain, can take 3 to 6 months. It's often not until the woman's first cycle that those progesterone levels have gone back to where they are. Now, with this, I'm not stating that every woman should be utilizing oral progesterone after birth because it can affect other hormones, especially with breastfeeding and whatnot. But if you do have that very severe patient with postpartum depression, it might be a conversation to have. So, anyway, okay, moving on to men. Crazy, right? Progesterone for him. A lot of times we think estrogen, progesterone, not for the man. They only do testosterone. Sometimes it's hard to convince, men that estrogen is a necessary hormone in their body and whatnot, and progesterone is as well. So for him, progesterone is a steady support, bringing clarity, resilience, and foundation for lasting vitality. These are some areas where we will find that progesterone can support a male, can support hormonal imbalance. It supports sperm production and fertility. It also helps with sleep quality, just as it does in our females. Now I'm going to take you back a little bit and do some biochemistry here. Progesterone acts as a precursor hormone. That means it serves as a building block for other steroid hormones, which includes testosterone. I mentioned earlier that cholesterol. So cholesterol is a building block of progesterone. So all steroid hormones share the common origin of cholesterol. So from cholesterol, the body will synthesize to pregnenolone, which then converts to progesterone. And then from there, progesterone will go on to create cortisol, or it can also go to create testosterone. So something to keep in mind. So in the androgenic pathway, progesterone is ultimately converted to testosterone. This makes progesterone a critical intermediate in the body's hormonal cascade. So without adequate progesterone, the entire production line downstream, including the testosterone and also cortisol, can be disruptive. So clinically, this relationship is important. In both men and women, progesterone helps to balance testosterone levels. It provides the necessary substrate for all these pathways. Low progesterone can contribute to testosterone imbalances. And conversely, adequate progesterone support helps to support steady hormonal foundation. So this interconnectedness reminds us that hormone therapy should also always be viewed holistically. So supporting progesterone levels not only affects mood and sleep, but it also influences a wider endocrine balance, so including testosterone synthesis and the availability of testosterone. So with that, we'll just dive a little bit into men's hormonal balance with progesterone. Um, it's a regulatory hormone in men. So in men, progesterone is produced in two main places, the adrenal gland and the testes. Although the amounts are much lower than they are in women, this hormone plays a quiet but powerful job in maintaining hormonal balance and metabolic stability. So we've already talked about how it acts as the precursor hormone for testosterone, but beyond that, it can help with regulating estrogen balance. So in men, a portion of testosterone is normally converted to estrogen through the enzyme aromatase. Progesterone naturally helps to inhibit the aromatase activity, which prevents excess conversion of testosterone to estrogen. And without that balance, estrogen levels can creep up in men, which they may notice some mood changes, some unwanted weight gain, as well as prostate concerns. So that's how progesterone will help with regulating estrogen. Progesterone also helps support testosterone function by stabilizing that androgen pathway. So you can kind of think of progesterone as a referee between testosterone and estrogen. It's going to keep both of them in their optimal ranges. It's not about producing more of one or the other. It's about maintaining that equilibrium. Progesterone helps to maintain that equilibrium. Next, we'll speak how progesterone helps in sperm production and fertility. So when we think about progesterone in men, we usually talk about it being a balancer of the testosterone and estrogen, just as we spoke about, but the importance actually extends further than that into male fertility and sperm health. So progesterone is not only a regulatory hormone, but it also directly activates, is directly active within the testes. So inside the seminiferous tubules, progesterone participates in the signaling pathways that guide the process of spermatogenesis. So this is the development and the maturation of sperm cells. So it helps to regulate the enzymes and cellular communication within the Sertoli and the Leydig cells, which are critical for nourishing developing sperm and maintaining an optimal testicular environment. So through these actions, progesterone supports proper differentiation and proper maturation of the sperm cells so they can reach their functional capacity. Now, beyond the production, they also have key effects on the sperm's function. So when sperm are released, progesterone acts as an important biochemical signal, and this can influence the motility, helping the sperm move more efficiently toward an egg. And it also has a process in which it releases enzymes that will also help it to penetrate the outer layer of the egg to actually achieve fertility. So interesting enough, progesterone receptors are found on sperm surface, meaning sperm can respond directly to progesterone present in the female reproductive tract. This interaction helps to activate the sperm, moving its ability to navigate and ultimately fertilize the egg. Sorry, my dogs. So in summary, within the testes, progesterone supports sperm production and sperm maturation. And then within the reproductive tract, it will help to optimize the motility and the fertilization capability. Let's talk about sleep quality and mood support in men. So we have to recognize that sometimes our guys struggle with sleep and mood as well. And this is where progesterone can help. It again, orally, will be converted to the allopregnanolone, working on those GABA receptors, which will help with sleep and help to calm moods. So those men who may state that they have difficulty falling or staying asleep, lots of irritability and agitation, reduced stress tolerance, general sense of feeling wound up or unable to relax could really benefit from progesterone. In men, we use progesterone at a much lower amount. So I was stating in women, sometimes we go up to 300. Some women have to go higher. In men, that's kept much lower, probably closer to a 20, 25. I would probably say I've seen a couple prescriptions for a 50 milligram, but 20, 25 milligrams is a great place to be. Through Strive, we actually have a product called Test Booster. Test Booster contains a number of different products that are going to help to boost testosterone endogenously. One of the products in that is progesterone. We have it in there as progesterone 20 milligrams. So it's going to help support, hormonal balance, help support the creation of the testosterone. It is going to help support fertility. So a lot of times this product is used in younger men who are wanting a boost in testosterone, but are still wanting to maintain fertility. And then overall, it is going to help with sleep quality and mood support as well. All right, next we talk about why we compound it as a capsule. So as a capsule, our products have simply progesterone in them, oral micronized progesterone, and either microcrystalline cellulose, or we're also able to make it in a modified release form, which we call E4M, and that is used with hypromellose. So hypromellose is also known as Methocel E4M, a plant-based product. For some individuals that will state that they have trouble falling asleep, but then also maintaining sleep. A lot of times that's where we use that E4M product because it's something that's going to be modified in its release, allowing for sustained sleep. These products are gluten-free and allergen-free as well. The capsule is incredible because it does have those mood stabilization. It has the benefit of sleep. So that's why a lot of times progesterone is recommended in capsule form versus some other forms that it can be made in. Now, I would say oftentimes we have patients utilizing estrogen as a topical product and then progesterone as an oral product. That's really a great combination for those women that are in perimenopause, menopause, etc. We do actually make progesterone in creams as well. It is a lipophilic hormone. That means it can pass through the skin layers, but only in small, inconsistent amounts. So even though it is a micronized hormone, it still is a fairly large hormone. So it isn't absorbed really as well as the estrogens are. So when it's absorbed, when it's used topically, the absorption is variable. And there's a lot of things that can influence this. That's the skin thickness, the hydration of the skin, what base that product may be in. So unfortunately, when it comes to looking at levels of progesterone, when it is being used topically, it's a little more unpredictable than when we're utilizing it as a capsule. We do use progesterone topically for some local support. So we do have a couple of our topical products that we place progesterone in, which it has some interesting benefits in that if that's something you're interested in. We also compound progesterone as a troche. So a troche, again, is just a small lozenge that goes under the tongue, or it goes buccally between the gum line in the cheek, and is intended to be absorbed just straight into the bloodstream. The hard part is that it doesn't dissolve well in the saliva because it is a lipophilic product. Therefore, a lot of that troche ends up being swallowed. Now, that isn't necessarily bad because that actually allows for some of the GABA effect that we spoke about earlier, but it's inconsistent absorption. So it's hard to know exactly, blood levels don't always remain consistent with that. So again, that's why most oftentimes we do recommend it in a capsule form. The last thing I'll end on here are some supplements that we have through Strive. So we just recently released our Strive supplements. These are supplements that were created by one of my colleagues. He is a clinical pharmacist and really has a love for supplements. So each of the Strive supplements is created by a pharmacist, which is really amazing. That's very unique to a supplement line. The ones you see here before you are called Balance and Boost, Restore, and Slumber. Balance is a support for women. So it's a natural hormone support supplement that contains ashwagandha, fenugreek, zinc. This is going to help maintain healthy hormone levels. Boost is a testosterone booster for men. This one is going to have Fedoja, Tongat Ali, again, zinc, all of these natural products that can help to boost endogenous testosterone. Restore is going to be a sleep aid. So it's a sleep support that does not have melatonin. So it has apigenin in it, magnesium, L-theanine, vitamin D3, all things that are really going to help support sleep but don't have melatonin in it. And if you're looking for somebody looking for melatonin support, which to be quite honest with you is very important for women, also that are going through menopause, perimenopause, melatonin levels will drop. Melatonin has a lot more benefit than just sleep, so that's something to keep in mind for your women. But slumber is going to have melatonin, valerian root, again, the apigenin, magnesium, L-theanine. So a very similar product to Restore, just without the melatonin. So again, designed for nightly use to help maintain good sleep. So our goal, we restore equilibrium with progesterone and we continue to redefine well-being with Strive. So I thank you for your time today. I know that that was a lot. Some of it was repetitive, but it's very clear that progesterone is an essential hormone for both men and women. Can be essential in all ages. And I thank you for being here. What you're doing, the time you're taking to learn about hormones, is really going to change so many people's lives.
Well, thank you so much. There's been lots of comments about how great the content is, so thank you.
Oh, good. It was
And
a
there's
lot.
lots of
I'm sorry.
questions, which is exciting.
I had a lot to
Um,
share.
all right, we get to put you in the hot seat now for some questions. So the first one, for the immediate benefits of bedtime progesterone, does this need to be immediate release or can it be an extended release?
Okay. That's a really great question. So, it depends on what your patient is experiencing. Are they able to fall asleep just fine on their own, but they can't maintain their sleep? Or are they struggling to fall asleep? If they're just struggling to fall asleep, to kind of calm their nervous system, calm their brain, the immediate release is going to be a great product. If you have those women that state that I can fall asleep okay, but I also need help staying asleep, that's where the modified release would come in. So that's when you would prescribe progesterone as the E4M. Now, you've heard me say E4M a couple times. The reasoning behind that is that we can't state that the product is extended release. The reason being is that it hasn't been fully studied for that extended release properties. So we call it in compounding E4M. So that's if your patient receives a bottle that says progesterone E4M, that is the meaning behind those three, well, they're letters and numbers, but you know what I mean.
Great. If a patient on HRT misses their progesterone and starts to have vaginal bleeding, how long should they be on an increased dose? And how high of a progesterone is safe to take nightly?
Um, so if they're noticing the bleeding, so if they're on estrogen therapy, and if their cycles have stopped, you'll want to do, the continuous progesterone. And if there is additional bleeding, if patients are having symptoms, you can go up in dose. Now, as far as the most adequate dose, it's really going to be very patient specific. Now, we have some patients that are actually younger, that are using over 400 milligrams just to help simply with sleep. Some patients are going to take that amount to help, maintain those hormone levels to where they are feeling great. We have to remember with blood levels and whatnot, it's and how a patient is feeling, symptoms, etc. We have to know that it's not just the numbers. We have to talk to our patient, understand their symptoms so that we can adjust accordingly. Now, one great thing about how it can be compounded is it can be compounded as a 100 milligram capsule. Oh, you know what I didn't talk about? I'm going to talk about this in a second. It can be compounded as a 100 milligram capsule. So a patient would have the ability to take 2 capsules maybe and see how their symptoms are. Take 3. One thing I forgot to say, and it was on my slide about compounding, is that the commercial progesterone product. So there is a commercial progesterone, oral micronized progesterone product, but the problem is it is made in peanut oil. So a lot of patients are going to have a peanut allergy, or sensitivity, to peanuts or whatnot, and that's a great reason to reach out to your compounding pharmacy for production of it. So.
Yeah, there's actually a couple questions about dosage. So one is typical male starter dose
Mhm.
for peri and androzole men. And then another one is also about like testing, like what types of like lab work should you get done before starting progesterone?
Yeah, absolutely. So for men, as I stated, the dose is significantly lower. Our product that we create, the test booster has 20 milligrams in it. 20 milligrams is a great dose for men, but you can go lower. So if they're, stating that it's causing grogginess or whatnot, they may not need to be at that 20 milligram dose. Now, I will say that the 20 milligram dose seems to be an adequate dose for most men. So we don't often see people request a decrease in the progesterone. Um, dose for men with when they're using that test booster product. So 20 milligrams would be a great place to start. As far as testing, there's many ways to test for hormones. It's really going to be kind of where your education was. You can do blood tests for it. There's also saliva testing that can be done, dry urine testing that can be done as well. That's something I can get more information put together for you. That might be a great follow-up to this. So maybe, Katya, that's something that can be on my list of things to do for you.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, if you we there's also been a couple questions about sharing out the presentation, the recording, so we'll make sure everybody gets that afterwards.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then is there, I guess, use cases when you would use immediate release versus the extended release, which you've kind of you've touched on, but
Yeah, extended release is great, just because it's going to maintain those levels. It's not always necessary. I would say, I'm trying to think about the numbers. I've done a lot. I've looked at progesterone a lot. We actually have progesterone coming out of one of our largest facilities that's able to ship to all 50 states. So we have our 100 and 200 milligram doses coming out of Missouri, which for your patients is quick turnaround time and everything. So keep that in mind. But I think I would say we probably see the immediate release being used a little bit more often than the extended release. But for those individuals that are needing, additional symptom support, extended release or modified release is a great option.
and then do you suggest cycling it for perimenopause patients?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So in a lot of perimenopause patients or younger patients, we do cycle it because we want the woman to continue, to have her cycles, to continue to have the sloughing of that uterine lining or whatnot. So that is when you cycle it. So about 14 days on, 14 days off. Some providers will do it longer. Now, other patients will continue it. Will use it continuously, but to maintain those cycles, you can cycle it.
And then hold on one second. I just lost the question I had. Oh, side effects. Are there any potential side effects that people should kind of pay attention to, look out for?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I only hit on one. And the great thing is there's not a ton of side effects. But with oral micronized progesterone, if it is taken at too high of a dose, perhaps, it can cause grogginess in the morning. Now, again, that symptom might even out over time as the body, gets used to having additional progesterone in the system. But sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Um, I lost my train of thought. What was I
It's
talking?
okay. It's still early in the morning for us.
I lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh. I totally don't know what I was talking about.
It's all good. We can jump into
Okay,
more.
let's go to the next one.
Um, okay. So there was side effects, and then there was one question. Is it available as a powder and an oil?
And in oil, so we used to, and we still might have some formulas that we make it within an oil. It's just there's great benefit utilizing it with just the microcrystalline cellulose or the hypermellose, both again, which are allergen-free, gluten-free, etc. If you are wanting a patient to have it in an oil, I do believe we still make oil capsules. Just it may cost a little bit more. There might be an additional cost, or it may just take more time to receive that. Now, we're not able to just sell progesterone powder, unfortunately. It would need to be compounded either as a cream, as a troche, as an oral product. So.
Okay. And then this next one, when would you use progesterone in men versus DHEA?
Both are great. I will tell you that I've talked about the Test Booster product a couple times. Test Booster has both DHEA and progesterone in it. So I think in most oftentimes men are going to use DHEA more often than they're going to use progesterone, but it is a great combination to help with endogenous testosterone production.
Okay. Um, and then this next one, just to confirm, you said that for women who have had hysterectomies, can this still be effective for mood, sleep, and
Mhm.
cognition?
Absolutely. So, in women that have had a hysterectomy, it isn't necessary for that endometrium protection, the uterine protection. Patients oftentimes are going to be placed on estrogen therapy, but the capsule is fantastic because it's still going to help maintain mood support. Mood support. It's still going to help to maintain sleep support.
Okay. And then there was another comment about using progesterone in males for hair loss. Is that a good treatment?
Absolutely. It can help prevent the testosterone from being converted to DHT. So, that's a great thing because testosterone conversion to DHT is oftentimes the culprit of the
Mm.
male pattern baldness and whatnot. So, yeah, absolutely.
And all variations of the test booster taken nightly?
Most oftentimes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple questions about when it should be like 30 minutes to an hour or 2 hours before bed, but is
Yeah, I
there a
would say
recommendation
about
on
30
when to
minutes,
take it?
30
30
30
minutes?
minutes to an hour before bed. While the patient is initiating therapy, they might want to, take it within about 30 minutes of going to bed when they know that they're ready for restful sleep, just to see how it affects them. We don't want them to take it too soon and still, like me, have to go pick up your kids from swim or whatnot and have that grogginess. So make sure when patients are initiating the therapy that they're at home and they can have supportive restful sleep.
That's great. That's great. And then can you put a micronized progesterone capsule in the vaginally?
So progesterone is used vaginally. Most oftentimes, if we are using it vaginally, we place it either in a cream. So it's placed in a cream that's going to be most supportive of the vaginal tissue, or it's used as a vaginal suppository. So I would look to one of those options before I would actually just use it as a capsule.
Okay. Yeah, there was actually a follow-up question about if somebody is sensitive to the oral progesterone, they're either not absorbing it or have some sort of reaction. Is that then better to transition them to a cream or a different formulation?
Sure. You're absolutely welcome, to use it in another form. Cream still does have benefit for sure. We have a lot of patients that do utilize it as a cream. It's just not going to have those the effects as far as the calming effects, the mood effects, the sleep.
Okay. All right, let me do a quick scan, make sure I got kind of most of the questions. I think we hit on most of them. Yeah, there's lots of comments about great presentation. I think
Oh, thank you.
everyone's really enjoying the
I
content. So thank
it
you so
was
much.
I feel like I kind of talked really fast. I try to not do that, but I was so excited that I think I talked fast.
No, 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 it was great. It was great. Yeah, all the
Awesome.
content was wonderful. So yeah, we will share this out
Yeah.
with everybody. We'll share out the presentation and the recording. We have a series actually right now with Strive, which we're excited. So we have Andrea here today on progesterone, and then there's one we have two upcoming on low dose naltrexone,
Yeah.
so LDN.
Mhm.
With Megan Kilkeary. So there's one on November 5th and one on November 14th. So typically, we have our webinars on Wednesday. We just had a scheduling conflict with the second LDN one, so that's actually going to be on a Friday. But typically, we have them. Somebody had asked about, wanting to kind of block their calendar for when we do these.
Awesome.
So yeah, so we have a lot more coming up. We also today we launched a perimenopause course with another provider, which we're really excited to have. So there's a session this evening, and then one next week. So this session is actually we have it fully booked, which is exciting. She's going to come back and do a second session, a more advanced course on perimenopause. So we'll make sure everyone gets the invites for those. And then if you can't join the course that we have, if we have scheduled now, we'll also have it available for purchase on our website. So we have lots of
Oh,
good
awesome.
content on these topics kind of coming up.
I want to be on those. I want to listen.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really good.
Yeah,
I know
that's
it's a kind of it's I like I have actually so many friends that have been asking if they can join as well because it's the hot topic at the moment.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
must say, you are going to be thrilled to listen to Megan. She's incredible. Megan is also a progesterone expert, so
yes.
she's wonderful. And if you do have further questions, I know I wasn't able to answer all of them. My email address is simply andrea@strivepharmacy.com. I'd love to stay connected with some of you if you do have questions. I learn from you just as much as you learn from me, so please never hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, that would be great. We can also we'll share it out too as well when we send send the recap. And again, I'm Katya. I'm one of the founders at MedBio. So if you guys have any questions for us as well, you can always just reply directly to our emails, and I can respond. I can put you in touch with who you need to get to. But we want to, we want to make sure we're building a community where everyone is able to, share all their knowledge with everybody else. So this is great.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
So the session tonight, the session tonight is actually it's I think it's sold out. There might be one or two slots left if people want to take a look right now. However, we will have it. We'll get it recorded on the materials. The courses are paid, but we'll have it available on our website. So if for some reason either you can't get in tonight because it's sold out, or you can't make the time, it's this evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, and then next Wednesday as well. We'll have those available to everybody. And we have a bunch of really great courses coming up that we haven't shared yet, but we'll get them on our events calendar. So definitely keep an eye on the MedBio calendar. We have all of our courses and events posted there. Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much, Andrea. Thank you as always for being here. We love having you. And yeah, we'll get this shared out to everyone at the latest tomorrow morning. Perfect. Okay, thanks, guys.